Ready, Mr. Smith? I feel like you should have one of those things when they start the rolling of the tape on a movie, right? He's checked out already. Yeah.
Either that or a sign that says on air.
There we go.
There you go.
Good evening, everyone. The hour being 7 p.m. on Monday, February 14th, 2022. I'd like to call to order the city council meeting in the city of Laconia. We do, just as a let people know that Councilor Littman is with us via Zoom. So when we do the roll call, he'll let us know his location and who else is in the room with him. And all votes this evening will be taken by roll call vote. The meeting will continue even if Councilor Littman's Zoom connection is lost. So it may take a little longer than necessary to get through a couple of votes, but I think the agenda is relatively light. So that being said, Councilor Susie, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councilor Susie. Our recording secretary this evening is Stacy Anders, and I'd ask her to please call the roll.
Here. Here.
Here, present in my home alone.
Here.
Present.
Here. Here. Thank you. We're also joined at council table this evening by City Manager Scott Myers. Our IT is City Finance Director Glenn Smith with us this evening. Our first item on our agenda is the acceptance of minutes from previous meetings. Regular meeting minutes of January 24th, 2022. The minutes of that meeting were distributed to the City Council on Friday, the 28th of 2022. With no corrections or changes submitted to the clerk, the minutes will be accepted as distributed. There are no consent and action items. So we'll move on to item number 9, which is citizens' comments for matters not on the agenda. It's be an opportunity for people in the audience who have a comment to make about items that are not on tonight's agenda or online. This will be their opportunity for anyone to comment. So this evening's comments, both for items not on the agenda and items on the agenda, will be limited to 3 minutes. At the 2-minute mark, I'll have Mayor Pro Tem Mark Haynes just wave that there's 1 minute remaining. Anyone online, Mr. Smith? No, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. No interviews, nominations, communications, no public hearings, no presentations. I will forego my comments this evening, my mayor's report in lieu of the issues that we have before us. And number 16 will be council comments. Have any comments from our councilors present tonight or virtually or in person? It's killing you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do we have any committee reports? Go right ahead, Councilor Hamel.
No committee, I just like council comment.
Oh, council comments. Okay.
I was gonna let Bruce go first, but
He's not going.
so
You
I
may
just
force me, Mayor. You never can tell.
I just want to say about the sled dog race this weekend. It went very well, other than Sunday. Saturday, there was just a mob of people there. It was really, really great to see all the people there. Fortunately, the weather turned bad for Sunday's race and it was canceled due to ice and the limited amount of snow on the trails. So, but I think overall it got Mr. Lyman was able to get it through, and we had the race this weekend, last weekend, and with a hiccup here and there, but it was nice to see it back in Laconia.
Thank you, Counselor Hamel. Moving on to committee reports. Any committee reports this evening? Or liaison reports? Yes, Counselor Haynes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to ask you that once we get to item 21C, I'd like an opportunity to speak on that
Yes,
in reference to the Heritage Commission.
terrific, absolutely. Moving on to item number 19, which is citizens' request to comment on current agenda items. This is the opportunity. If there are items on tonight's agenda that you would like to speak to, now would be the appropriate time. I'll look for your cue, Mr. Smith, if there's anyone online. Mr. St. Clair, step right up. No, we're not in a hurry. We're going to stick to a strict time frame. That's all.
As I said, thank you. I'm here to talk, I want to just briefly comment on the trash proposal. I just read in the paper and what we talked about here at this council meeting briefly at the last meeting. The article in the paper said one of the requirements will we bring our trash to the curb. I haven't seen my curb in about 2 months. I'm not looking forward to shoveling a spot. It's bad enough I have to keep the end of my driveway clean. I'm not complaining because that's the cost of living in a city with a road in front. But I'm not thrilled with the idea of having to clear a spot for my trash cans and constantly have to do that as the sidewalk plow goes by and the street plows go by. And I think I'm fortunate at my age that I can deal with it. I don't like dealing with it, but I think there's a lot of citizens in the city that may not be able to deal with it. Right now, when I put my trash out, because I've had some councilors say, what do you do with it now? I put it on top of the snow. I can't put it in my driveway because I try to get the trash out the night before, and I usually leave before it's picked up. So that being said on that, I also heard where we're going to have the trash cans have serial numbers on them. So I'm wondering then if it's my responsibility not to lose the can. If somebody steals it, do I call the police department or do I call the city up and say my can's missing? And am I going to get a free can if it never shows up, or am I going to be financially responsible to replace that? I think that's a valid question.
Mr. St. Clair, I'll even give you this time back. Is there a tendency to have these trash cans stolen? Are you aware of?
Yes, I've lost
Really?
2 right here at the Antique Center, 2.
Really?
Yeah. And
Go right
I-
ahead. Sorry, I'll give you your time back.
Thank you very much. I don't particularly care. I'm not fond of the Casella Corporation. I think the people, the staff on the trucks do as good a job as they can under the circumstances they use. I don't necessarily think Casella has the city's best interest in it. They have their own best interest in it. And I understand that. That's what big companies do. I think that the city should look into it, maybe with a month study or something, the possibility of the city taking over this and having our own trucks. People might say, choke on that, but you're talking about $600,000 for cans. I don't know what the cost it would be for trucks, maybe lease them or something like that. And having Laconia staff, the people we have at Public Works do a great job. And I know everybody says there's a big labor shortage, but nonetheless, I think it's something that's worth looking at. And I would like that to be done. And I just trust, you know what, if the city came back and said, okay, we're taking it over and these are the cans we got to use, or the automatic stuff, I would rather hear it from the city and be able to work with the city because I trust the city. Do I trust these corporations to do the best, look out for the cities? No, I don't. They're in the business to make money at any cost. And the fact that there was only 1 bid, which again, I read, it kind of sounds like the porta potty thing, only 1 bid, because most of those companies are gone now. They've been bought out or forced out of business. So I hope you study this. I hope this is not a rush to judgment. I think more of the citizens need to be aware of it, especially with the money you're talking about just for garbage cans. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. St. Clair. You don't have to raise your hand. You can step right up.
I totally second everything he just explained.
Would you
about all
introduce
the-
yourself? Let us know where you live.
Sherry Minor. I live here in Laconia. I actually own a lot of multifamilies as well. We have multifamilies, we have mobile home parks. All my multi-wood frames are here in the city of Laconia. I have a great deal of trouble with trash the way it is now. There's no way anything would be any sort of control with this kind of situation. Again, the sidewalk thing, the difference number of barrels to the amount of units, fighting over this person taking that barrel, that's gonna be a nightmare alone. People do steal barrels all the time. We go through quite a few. I just think it's gonna be obviously a real problem. I don't know any solutions. This really was just brought to my attention, so I haven't even researched to try to even find a solution. But I know that certainly if it came to this, we should get some sort of tax break and take our own trash to the dump, because that's how much of a inconvenience and problem this is gonna be for us. So,
Okay,
thank you.
thanks very much. Appreciate your comments.
Cal Dunn at Ward 4. I'd just like to basically ask a question. I was under the impression that we would probably hear from the city first, the proposal. I thought this was kind of unusual. I mean, I had read the article in the paper, but I'm not quite sure what's what. So,
Well, you may very well, looks like there's a proposal loaded up here. And we're not going to be voting on anything tonight, Mr. Dunn. So you'd have another opportunity after the proposal is made. We all get a little more familiar with some of the things that are being discussed. You certainly can come back and be in contact with us at any time. So I don't think there'll be any vote tonight to do something in particular.
all right, well, just for my 2 cents worth, I think that most of the world is going to automated, the manufacturing, logging industry and several others, and it probably is the way to go, but to me, I haven't seen where it's going to benefit the city. There's been no numbers put out to me where the city's going to save any money, or it always seems to be an underlining meaning whenever a lot of times the city proposes something, and to me, it just seems to be a way to regulate the trash more. And I don't understand that. The city has trash. Why don't we pick it up? There's nothing about the tax base that's fair, not with schools, not with the roads that we have. There's many people that don't drive. They still pay to have the roads maintained and plowed. You know, I'm just saying, there's like my situation, it's just my wife and I now. We have very little trash, and no children in school, but you still pay for the school tax. So I just don't know why we're not responsible and just pick up the trash. Some people have 8 members in their household and they produce more trash. It's the whole reason, I believe, the intent why the city picks it up to begin with. So that's all I have, knowing what I know at this time. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Dunn.
Good evening. My name is Steve Laughlin. I live at 49 Audrey Lane in Laconia. Before I begin, I'd like to compliment Wes Anderson and our public works director on the great job your staff has done this winter, considering we've had so much ice and snow and sleet, and it can't be fun for those employees in the middle of the night to go out. So thank you very much. However, I'm here at this time, and I respectfully request that the city council not implement an automated refuse collection. I recognize that labor costs have gone up over the last year, and that the current refuse collector is trying to save money. I recognize that. However, the new proposal, as Charlie St. Clair mentioned, will not only be an inconvenience for many of us who can't necessarily put their garbage cans out on a level surface, but it also, I think it's going to financially negatively impact the city of Laconia in the long run. And that's because the city will be locked into either a 10 or a 15-year bond to pay for these. Separate from the debt service on the bond, once the bonding is in place, there'll be less financial incentive for the city to look for an alternative company when the new proposed refuse contract expires, whenever that is, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, because we're going to be locked in for a longer period of time. And as Charlie said, who knows what administrative headaches somebody at City Hall is going to have, or the police department is going to have, maintaining all the serial numbers on the umpteen number of trash cans, whether they're lost, stolen, or whatever. The accounting will be a headache for somebody. As you as members of the city council, I ask you simply this: please consider aggressively sending out a proposal for other companies to bid on this contract. And if that doesn't work, and I don't like this one, have the city directly provide the garbage service. But I really would like to see an outside source do it. And in conclusion, I'd just like to say we should be accommodating our customer, namely the city of Laconia, and the property owners, not the garbage provider. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Hi, my name's Harry Bean.
Welcome.
I don't live in Laconia, but I own some apartment houses in Laconia. I've been buying apartment houses down here for 46 years, so I have a few of them. I have a lot of low-income people that are on some form of government aid. And this proposal here is going to create untold problems. Where do you store the garbage cans? The answer that I got was, oh, put them nice, neatly up against the side of the building, but don't put any garbage in them until it's time. These guys, these tenants are not my children. They're my tenants. They're not my problem. They're your problem. That's one thing there. Then you get the thing with the stacking these garbage cans on the snowbank. I understand that if I've got a 6-unit apartment house, the cubic feet that I'll be retaining here will be 4 big garbage cans for 6 units, because the cubic footage wouldn't be the same. There'd be 4 instead of 6, is the way I understand it. Now, I might be wrong, because I'm kind of behind the 8 ball here. I think that we should have heard from the proposal first, so that we don't waste our time talking about stuff we heard or read in the paper or whatever. So if you've got a 6-unit apartment house and you've got 4 garbage cans, and the guy in apartment number 1 has a birthday party for his kid, and he fills up 2 of those garbage cans. Now you got 2 left for the other 5 tenants. That ought to work pretty good. Be all blowing up and down the street. Who's going to make sure the covers are on? It took me a couple of months to teach my tenants, some of them, not all of them, the difference between glass bottles and a cardboard box. So this right here is going to be quite an issue. Getting them to go out there and put them 36 inches apart so this machine can pick them up. Then there's the other issue of the snowbank. They got to be out next to the curbing. They got to be out next to the curbing. So if I've got 4 garbage cans at 3 feet each, and you're gonna have 3 feet in between, you got 24 feet plus 3 feet on the other end. So you got 27 feet you're gonna need to put these garbage cans out there. So what am I gonna do with the snow for that 27 feet? Right now, the snow bank is about almost as high as that bench and a little bit wider than that bench. Obviously, it's rounded. So I'm gonna have 27 feet of snow bank. Am I supposed to put that back in the road? Back on the sidewalk? I gotta hire somebody to shovel that every time it snows. What I gotta do, buy a truck to put the snow in? It's just, there's so many complications to this. If you, in fact, have a single family house and a garage in which to put your trash can, I'm probably almost over my 3 minutes.
You are.
I think you're getting the gist of this. It ain't gonna work.
Thanks very
47
much,
years.
Mr. Bean. Appreciate you coming by today.
Not 4 or 5.
Any other comments from people either online or in the chamber? No one online is raised their hand. Thank you. Moving on to item number 20, the city manager's report. Turn it over to Scott Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Keep the pace going here tonight. Included in your packet, you have the financial and operational trends for this month. Starting off at the top, the building permit report again is the value of new building permit construction that comes online during the year between April 1st and March 31st, which coincides with the Department of Revenue Administration assessing year. We're at $46.5 million in building permit value year to date, with the months of February and March still to go. That's up a couple of million from the report that we had in January. And January is typically a quiet month of the year for building permits, but we still gained over $2 million in value this year. Far ahead of the pace of 1 year ago at 30 million and 2 years ago at under 15 million. You can see the data down below for fire and rescue calls. Again, a significant increase for the month over where we were in 20 and 21. 2020 was pre-COVID, but 2021 was in the middle of COVID. The public assistance data, as I've mentioned for the last couple of meetings, we see that ticking up a little bit as some of the support and safety net programs for those who need assistance are starting to unwind. And again, I'll just state that we do have some reimbursements from various programs in the mix on that. So that number is fluid. You'll see the police department calls for the month and the breakdown there. Towards the bottom of the page, property tax collection continues to be very strong, just under 98% collected. And you can see the data going back to 2014. That's the strongest position that we've been in, that shows on this chart. Motor vehicle registrations, again, continue to be strong. We are about $175,000 ahead of last year's pace year to date, fiscal year to date. So starting July 1, and again, last year was a record year. So we are at 61% collected, which is a couple of percentage points above where we targeted to be at this point in the year. The overtime is broken out for you by department. It's a little bit more of an issue than last year, as we've had the spike with the Omicron virus that came in starting in the late fall and through the winter months. And part of it is, as more things have opened up, people are starting to take some vacations over the winter months and those types of things. So it is coming in. And obviously with some folks still needing to quarantine, whether it's for their own purposes or family relation purposes. So it's a moving target, but it's definitely showing a bit of a spike across a lot of departments this year. You can see the impact fee revenues. We've collected $15,000 year to date in various impact fees. And those tallies are broken down for you on the bottom of page 4. We'll go to page 5, boat taxes run on a calendar year for us, or the registration actually runs on a calendar year. So boat taxes are starting to roll in for calendar year 22. And again, you do not have to be a Laconia resident to register a boat. Anybody can come in and register a boat here in City Hall if it's convenient for them. Bottom of the page is the EMS billing history. Again, if you do a comparison on the number of billable trips this fiscal year to date versus last year, you can see, about a 20%, if not greater, jump in those. And again, a lot of that related to the economy and the world opening up a little bit more through some of the changes and improvements with the vaccine and COVID. And as Mr. Locklear had mentioned, the winter storms, I also echo that sentiment that there's been a lot of icing, freezing, melting, freezing again overnight. I mean, this past weekend was a perfect example of warm temperatures during the day, and then all of that stuff freezes overnight. So the crew really has been chasing it through no fault of their own. It's just been one of those nickel and dime type of winter events. But overall, we've gone through a little bit more of overtime than we would like to at this point in the winter season. But overall, when you look at the amount of money spent on outside contractors and the winter maintenance for parts and salt and sand, we're still in very good shape as we sit with through the end of January with this report. Happy to take any questions the council may have.
Thanks very much, Scott.
You're welcome.
Moving on to item number 21, which is our new business, and 21A, which is to authorize acceptance of the State of New Hampshire Department of Safety 2021 Homeland Security Competitive Grant in the amount of $98,251.81 to fund the purchase of an emergency response trailer along with emergency response supplies. As you may remember, in 2021, Laconia Police Department applied for a grant offer through the state of New Hampshire Department of Safety, Homeland Security. Recently, we were notified that we had, our application has been approved and the grant has been awarded. This grant money will allow Laconia Police Department to purchase an enclosed trailer that will be stocked with traffic cones, barricades, traffic direction signs, and electronic signboards that will allow the Laconia Police Department and other municipalities within Belknap County the ability to quickly respond to situations necessitating the need for securing an environment and for response personnel engaged in life-saving and life-sustaining operations. This grant was included in the fiscal year 21-22 anticipated grants resolution. That would be RES 2021-09. A public hearing was held for grants listed on this resolution on June 14th, 2021. There's no fiscal impact to the city of Laconia. The entire cost of the equipment is covered by the state of New Hampshire Department of Safety 2021 Homeland Security Competitive Grant, and there is no local match requirement. This report was submitted by Captain Al Grattan, and it is his recommendation on behalf of the police department, the acceptance of the grant. So right now I'll be looking for a motion. A move to authorize acceptance of the State of New Hampshire Department of Safety 2021 Homeland Security Competitive Grant in the amount of $98,251.81 to fund the purchase of an emergency response trailer along with emergency response supplies. We're looking to further move to authorize the city manager to enter into contracts or agreements on behalf of the city of Laconia with the New Hampshire Department of Justice and to execute any necessary documents with regard to the grant. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Yes.
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 That's 6 votes in the affirmative and that motion passes. Item number 21B, which is a request to approve revised boardwalk policy. At the January 10th, 2022 City Council meeting, a motion was approved raising the rental fees for vendor spaces on the boardwalk for Laconia Motorcycle Week from $1,500 per space to $1,750 per space. The boardwalk policy now needs to be revised to reflect the change. A copy of the policy is attached to our packet. Hopefully you've all had an opportunity to review it. Revisions are in red. And at this point, we'll be looking for the revision. It's on page 25, top right. Right now, I'd be looking for a motion to move to approve the revised boardwalk policy as presented, reflecting an increase in the vendor space fee for boardwalk vendor spaces for Laconia Motorcycle Week to $1,750 each.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Susie. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, hearing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. 6 votes in the affirmative and that motion passes. Moving on to item number 21C, Councilor Haynes would like to speak to it. Perhaps after we have a motion on the table in a
Yes.
second, okay? This is a request to create an appointments committee of the city council. This was an idea proposed by Councilor Susie, which I think we all agreed was a good idea. But this proposal has been made to create a standing city council committee tasked with screening candidates interested in serving on the city's boards, commissions, and committees, and to recommend appointment of those candidates to the full council. There is the attached document to your packet, which has the details. Hopefully you've all had an opportunity to take a look at that. And right now I'll be looking for a motion to move to approve the creation of an appointments committee of the city council as presented. So made by Councilor Susie, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Haynes.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'm only speaking in behalf of the Heritage Commission. As you probably are aware, they are short members and they have a member pending appointment to be reviewed by this committee. So their only hope was that it would be as quickly as possible because the shortages, as far as they're concerned, prevent sometimes, which is twice this winter, prevented them from having a quorum so they could meet.
Good point. So if this motion passes, perhaps we'll expedite the formation of this committee and we can get acting on that. Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
That's 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. As it's the mayor's obligation to appoint 3 council members. I'd like to appoint Councilors Haynes, Susie, and Cheney to that board. It's acceptable with you?
thank you. Yes.
Just as a point of order, Mr. Mayor, does say and affirmed by the council. So I see Councilor Sheedy. Jen, you flexing over here, but you probably just need consensus from the council that
Would that meet with the consensus with the council?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Seems like it has.
The other 3, of course, say it's a great idea.
They break the tie.
just want to make sure we reflect that in the minutes. Thanks.
Moving on to item number 21D, which is the request to appoint Joanne Gergino as Ward 1 moderator for a term expiring at the end of December 2023. We're looking for a motion to approve Joanne Gergino as Ward 1 moderator for a term expiring at the end of December 2023, if I can repeat myself. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Susie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the, not you, Stacy. That's gonna. I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
Yes,
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Phelps.
Yes.
That's 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 21E. Be looking for a motion to appoint Martha Clement as Ward 1 clerk for a term expiring at the end of December 2023. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Hamel. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor
Yes.
Haynes,
yes,
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Phelps.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative and that motion passes. Item number 21F, which is to amend the city code, chapter 161, licensing to update sections 161-11, capital A, and 161-19. This has to do with the licensing fees for the Laconia Motorcycle Week, which we just voted on. And sections of the licensing chapter of the code now need revising, to be revised to reflect those changes. So this is 3 motions. First motion is a motion to waive reading of ordinance 2022-161-11. And I don't understand how to read that. 161-11, is that,
Common
is it
19.
comma 19 in its entirety and to read by title only? So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Littman,
Yes.
Counselor Haynes,
yes,
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Phelps.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Next, I'd look for a motion to move a first reading of ordinance 2022-161-11, comma 19, amending chapter 161, licensing to update sections 161-11, period, big A and capital A, and 161-19. So made by Councilor Susie, seconded by Councilor Cheney. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Whitman,
yes,
Counselor Kane,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Phelps.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. And finally, I'd be looking to move to schedule a public hearing on February 28th, 2022 during the regular city council meeting to gather public input prior to any action being taken. So made by Counselor Haynes, seconded by Counselor Hamel. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Yes.
Counselor Susie,
Yes.
Counselor Whitman,
yes,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
Counselor Phelps.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Item number 21D, which is a discussion of an RFQ for urban planning services for downtown Laconia. At our January 10th meeting, I think we'll all recall that I requested that the city council would initiate the process for an urban planner to look at downtown parking, current pedestrian pathways, lighting, safety, economic development, public-private initiatives, and underutilized parcels. Over the past last week, we see the first draft of the request for qualifications, which is RFQ number 22-03-01 for urban planning services. I hope you've all had a chance to take a look at it. I have, and just to lead off the discussion, I think this is a very good first draft. And much as I would like to move quickly, I think we can probably, I would recommend a couple of edits to this. We have focused heavily on one component of an urban plan, which is parking. And though I think it's an integral aspect of any urban plan, and certainly should be one of the focuses of an urban planner if we get to the point of deciding we're going to hire one, I think we should be focusing more on the overall economic development. And I guess my point is here, and I don't know if this is helpful, but let me know, Scott, and let me know your thoughts, counselors. The idea isn't so much just to look at parking. It's to look at our whole urban landscape within that box that we set out, from the beacons, Main Street Bridge, up around the train station, and probably picking up the parking lot behind St. Joe's Church and that general area. But I think the idea that I'm looking for here is looking at our open spaces within the city and thinking about, should they remain open spaces, surface parking, if you will? Is there a possibility to consider that as perhaps the future placement of some sort of parking garage if we get to that point, or not? Should we think about, if it's not going to be a parking garage where some of the urban spaces are right now, surface parking spaces, should we be thinking about, is the potential for long-term development of that property for something that would help the downtown fulfill its potential? And I guess determining what that potential is probably more subjective than objective. But how do we continue to grow the local economy here? And how do we also consider areas that we might increase our housing inventory, whether that be townhouses or condominiums or apartments? I think it's sort of, when I think about what I would like to see from an urban planner, is not necessarily no traffic study, as I've made it clear. I don't think we've been down that road before, but more of a holistic approach to what are we going to do just on this Main Street corridor in surrounding areas. Counselor Susie.
I think you're right on, exactly to the point, but I'd also like to see expand it a little bit. I'm sorry. I think you're right on in the point, for not to just include a traffic study or parking or anything else like that, but we're gonna look at the whole, but I'd like to see it expand a little bit. Okay. Take a look at both what the Historic Commission, the Heritage Commissions all have for these maps and these areas, and also what we consider the downtown area Okay, does it go out further out into New Salem Street towards the police department? Does it go down Water Street a little bit more? We're looking at the river edge, right? We've all talked about, you know, the riverfront, okay? Both this side of the river and the other side of the river, okay? So I just like to see it, and I agree, but the only thing I didn't see in here was a timeline and a time frame. I know we talked about that, not letting it go and go and go and go. We wanted something done that was not expeditious, that we're getting not a full job, but we also didn't want to see it last long.
I think that's right. Thank you, Counselor Susie. Counselor Cheney.
I've been around here long enough to live through downtown revitalization and urban renewal, and we're about 15 feet away from being a ghost town until they finally cut through on the main street. So I'm a little antsy about studying all these things at once. We started off talking about parking. Let's finish that. And then let's move on to some of these other things. But I don't mind if you even hire this planner and tell them to look at all of these things, but can we deal with the parking issue and get it out of the way and hit these things one thing at a time? I mean, you look at Main Street and there's a lot of open space there, and a good part of that is urban renewal and downtown planning and a few other projects over the years. I think this started out fix the garage or don't fix the garage. Now suddenly we're worrying about New Salem Street and I don't disagree over the long haul. I just would like, my personal view, and I'd like to convince others, is that we segment this and say, let's get the parking issue out of the way, and then we'll move on to whatever the next issue is.
So maybe if I hear you correctly, and I don't know if this is exactly what you're thinking of, but this could be a phased approach. And I think what you're suggesting, if there's 2 or 3 phases, the first phase you think should be parking, right? Where it should be, and do we have enough of it as we continue to grow? So maybe that's phase 1, that just a thought.
Right, and you know, if you have a huge project come in here, it's kind of difficult to understand it all.
Sure.
But if we do it in segments, you know, small bites, then maybe we can get at the nitty gritty of each portion of it and do it right this time.
So I'll look to you, Scott, on some of these comments, because this is some of the stuff, obviously, that we'll be looking to you to integrate into the edits of the draft, but just raise your hand or just chime in here during the discussion, just to
Sure, I'll let everyone.
just make
get
sure
it.
you've got enough
Yep, I'll let
information. to work
everyone,
with.
get a chance to speak, and then I can offer thoughts at the end.
Okay. Mr. Smith, Councilor Lippman would like to speak. That's correct. Councilor Lippman, go right ahead.
Thank you. With respect to the proposal, I agree with you, Mayor. It needs, it's an initial draft. In terms of what Councilor Cheney was just mentioning about sort of the parking, I guess I would say that initially I was in favor of proceeding with the decision that the council had sort of looked at for the parking garage. But I think in terms of taking a step back, I think it's important that we understand what the cost of other options are in the parking realm, but also, you know, the perspective that you're trying to add to the engagement is to make sure that the parking decisions that we do make economic sense for the long run, right? I mean, that's, I think, where you were coming from to begin with, Mayor, was
Yes.
that don't dump a certain amount of dollars into that current parking garage situation. Instead, take a step back and figure out what's the ultimate demand going to look like. And so, while I think you can tackle one piece of it, if you tackle it in isolation, I'm not sure we're going to be any further along than where we were before, which may be okay too. But I think that the parking garage versus other alternatives is really important for the community to understand, so that they can respect in the end what decision is made.
Thank you, Councilor Lippman. Looking to the other councilors here for if they'd like to weigh in on this. Go right ahead, Counselor Felch.
Yeah, I pretty much second what Counselor Cheney says. As far as the parking garage, I think we've all agreed that it needs to be redone right now, and that's now. That's not the future. Do we have to look at the future for more parking, or whether that's enough parking? Probably. Or what we're gonna do in 30 years if we have to redo the garage again? Can we do something else? But right now, I think we need to work on the parking garage and worry about the rest as time goes on.
Scott, your thoughts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So a lot of the templates we looked at were, I agree, a little heavier focused on the parking, but I think in our situation, what staff and I worked with, including Dean and Wes and John, in putting this together is there's a couple of dynamics in play here. One is right now, we say no overnight parking in any city parking lot. That's in our ordinance. And as we start to get infill and people parking in our parking lots, let's just say during a snowstorm, now you've got, 5 years from now, you got 30 or 40 cars of people living downtown that need to shuffle somewhere, and where are they going? And I know, and I agree with the comments that I've heard of right now, parking behind St. Joseph's Church is underutilized. So how do we structure it so that our all-day employee parking for all businesses should occur there, and we leave the more premium downtown spots near the heart of the downtown for your shorter term parking and your turnover spaces? If the municipal lot outside the doors here in City Hall were to be identified as a site for a parking garage versus the current one, how many spaces does that take out of inventory? The other thing I think this focuses on is, why are people coming here? Right now, you could have a mix of people coming to work, people coming to be, home from work and to live here, and their cars are going to be here overnight. And you're going to have people coming down on nights and weekends for the theater or dinner or any other thing that they want to partake of down here. So I think it's really important to identify what our target market is at any given point during the day and how many cars that looks like. That's what hopefully is going to drive where should we, determine that certain parking is warranted for the time frame they're going to be there. And also, what do those pedestrian pathways look like from when the people park? Where are they going? How are they getting from point A to point B? If you're parking behind the church, how many are coming basically across in front of the post office and coming through this parking lot to either go across to Lakes Region Mental Health or this building or one of the other two mill buildings here? How many are segueing somewhere else down to Main Street? So that ties into where we want the crosswalks, how we may want to reconfigure the access points coming in and out of the church and the former Holy Trinity School and the private residence that was the rectory, because right now you've got 3 driveways and none of them line up with our intersection neatly, especially if you're emptying a show or emptying a workday and you've got 50, 60, 70 cars coming out of there at basically the same time. So then that comes into your lighting and your wayfinding, signing as to how to direct people where you're going. So that is one piece of it. The other challenge, if you want to look at it, or component, I shouldn't say a challenge, the other component that needs to be reviewed with the parking is, as our number of folks coming to the community increases, are our loading zones in the right places? Do we have enough of them? Are our handicap spots in the right places? Do we have enough of them? What's our mix now of a need for a 15-minute spot, whether it's a resident just pulling up to get groceries into their apartment or their condominium and then moving to more permanent, parking for the remainder of the day? Electric vehicles. And if you watched the Super Bowl last night, how many ads were there for electric vehicles? They're coming. That needs to be a component of this next chapter in our urban planning as to where we're putting charging stations and how many should they be and where they're located. It's also public-private partnership, and do we have underutilized surface lots that would be better served to have some kind of a development on them and not just have surface parking, on a riverfront, again, outside of the building here. So those are the components. I don't necessarily disagree that, what our need is for parking and what that looks like might drive some of the other one, but there's a lot of intermingling here in the big picture. So while isolating is certainly doable on the parking, it is going to bleed over in a couple of the other areas that I think just need to make it comprehensive. Otherwise, I think we shortchange ourselves. But I agree. First read, this does read parking heavy. That wasn't the intent, but in trying to kind of create a niche and not look at, reinventing the wheel and focus on traffic and whatever else, it does read that way. I agree. And we can soften that a little bit. And also, this is just a request for qualification. So as we bring folks in, if this moves forward, you've got the opportunity to interview and ask some of the experts, what are we missing here? Or have that conversation so they understand that it's not all about parking. It's about bigger opportunities, including economic development and public-private partnership. So I think we've got some chances to improve it, but also to work with whoever's coming in to interview for qualifications.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, I appreciate your openness to working on this and softening it a little bit. And, just thinking about the suggestion, which I think is a good one from Councilor Cheney about maybe phase one is parking, maybe phase two is something else. Certainly a discussion that we could have with when people respond to this RFQ and see if they might agree with our perspective. Should this be a phased approach here, taking on the first things first, which may be very well be parking. And then what would phase two or phase three look like if we got that far? So anyway, go right ahead, Councilor Cheney.
Well, I just want to say, I didn't mean to imply just the parking garage or the parking lot. I just meant parking is an issue, which I think takes in almost everything or everything that the manager just talked about. I'm fine that it's not just a parking garage, that it includes, 15-minute parking and loading zones, and I'm fine with that. I think you outlined some things beyond that, and Councilor Susie, I don't disagree with either one of those. I just would like to work on these issues first.
Okay. Any other input on this topic right now? So Scott, do you feel like you've got enough sort of to put together a second draft here, work with your team to put together a second draft that we can look at?
I do, and Wes is here tonight, and we video or we tape this, so this is available for staff to review, and we'll incorporate some of this and get you an updated draft.
How would you like us to handle this item on the agenda? Does it need to be put on the table or just continued, or how? What's the proper?
I'd make a motion to table it tonight.
So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Susie. This is not open to discussion, so it has the clerk to call the roll. It's a motion to table.
Yes.
Yes.
Councilor Whitman,
Yes.
Councilor Haynes,
Yes.
Councilor Hamel,
Yes.
Councilor Phelan.
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Item number 21G on your agenda is tabled. Moving on to item number 22, which is unfinished business. And this is the discussion of converting to an automated solid waste curbside collection system upon completion of the current manual collection contract. I see our Director of Public Works, Wes Anderson, has a slide deck loaded, and I'll turn it over to Scott and Wes here to lead the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So again, this is an overview of kind of where our current cost is with a manual program versus an automated option that also incorporates the town of Belmont utilizing what would be the recycling truck that we only use every other week, so to speak. And again, not our truck, but within the bid package, bringing Belmont in to use the recycling truck, if you will, on our off week helped make it more cost effective for someone to come in and to bid on this, because they know they're getting full utilization of the trucks. Just for some background, the last 2 times we've gone out to bid for contracted services for curbside waste pickup, we've only had 1 bidder the last 2 times. There are very limited players right now in the market, and for whatever reason, we just had the sole vendor come in on that. Wes and I have discussed, and for a number of reasons, including maintenance of vehicles, availability of staff, just with some of the changing requirements right now on people getting their CDLA licenses. We are, I'll say, very strongly of the mindset that this is not something that we would want to bring in-house. If we had a truck go down, if we had, one of a few trained drivers go down, and all of a sudden you got a pinch and, we've only got 1 truck and we need 2 out on the roads today because it's a recycling week. We don't have a deep bench, and it's a very expensive bench to buy an extra truck just to sit around for the odd time that you need it. So I think there's folks who do this far better. It's their business. If we go the automated route over the manual, which I think we're being guided to just by the industry itself, and the fact that they're having some of the same challenges in hiring labor and getting people to ride on the back of the truck, which is a dangerous position for people. I think this is kind of the way the world is going. And to a little bit of extent, our hand is being forced. But in either scenario, whether we're looking at trying to maintain a manual collection route or going automated, there is savings to the automated over the manual, but either one is going to be an increase in next year's budget and budgets going forward. And beyond that, I think a bigger issue that New Hampshire is facing right now is landfill capacity and how we're approaching that as a state, because it's getting harder and harder, and more communities are opposing landfills either being created or expanding in their communities. And as a state, that's something that we need to take action on now, so that 10 years from now or 15 years from now, we're not in the situation where we've got no landfill capacity left, and now all of our stuff is going out of state, which is going to cost every community a lot more money. So there are a lot of moving parts here, and this is one of them. And I'll turn it over to Wes, and I might jump in here and there along his presentation.
All right, so this is what the whole.
Can you get rid of
briefing
the
is about.
microphone, Wes, so everyone can
Oh,
hear you
thanks.
behind you?
This is what the whole briefing's about. It's the budgetary impact. Right now, it looks like for fiscal year 2023, we're gonna have a $320,000 increase in the cost of solid waste in the city. There's some decisions that the council's gonna have to make either now or during the budget process. One is, are we gonna convert to an automated system or not? What changes we're gonna make to the system, and then what solid waste fee increases that we're gonna have to make over the next 4 or 5 months. Wrong slide. There we go. Okay, so why are we having to do this? Market forces are at work. There's a labor shortage nationwide, there's a labor shortage in the state. Additionally, we have inflation, and you have to remember right now, there's commodities that we are dealing with. We've known that the recycling product has been a commodity for quite a while. For a while, we were up for $130 a ton or more to dispose of our recycling. We had 1 month where we actually made a little bit of money on it, but now it's back up to over $63 a ton to dispose of our recycling. On the landfill side of it, you got 4 sources in the state to be able to dispose of landfill. You got the wind waste incinerator down in Pennacook, which right now is turning away customers. They have so much trash coming in. You have Casellas in Bethlehem, which will become full in 2026. So that's out of the picture at that point. You have Waste Management in Rochester, which has been approved for an expansion. They're in the testing phase for that expansion now. It starts in about a year, and they figure they have about 10 to 15 years worth of life on it. And then the last one is the Androscoggin Valley Regional Refuse Disposal District up in Berlin.
And just, I will jump in here. Towards the end of the last calendar year, Casella had already hit their maximum capacity, or were on pace to hit their maximum capacity of tonnage based on their run out of their landfill cycle going to 2026 based on their original capacity. And other than contractors, other than entities they were contracted with, they were not accepting any outside loads of solid waste to their facility in Bethlehem in Belmont for hauling up north. And we had a few local companies who reached out to the city and said, hey, I can't drop my loads off anymore in Belmont, and Casella just doesn't have the capacity. And we worked with Waste Management, who runs our transfer station and operates turnkey landfill down in Rochester, to see what additional capacity we could accept in our transfer station without overloading our staff or their staff and being able to haul. But that was a very real problem. And there was at least one Laconia-based hauler, or
We had 3.
3 who we and Waste Management accommodated so that they had an opportunity to help bring materials local and support. But that was a very real action that Casella basically put a cap on what was going in so that they could not go over their benchmark by the end of the calendar year. And it left haulers who had plenty of material stranded. So the landfill capacity is real.
Scott? What's the 2022 budget for trash?
I didn't bring the budget book with me. There's 3 components. I want to say that you're talking about just for the curbside pickup for everything.
Because it's 320,000 above compared to 2022.
I can't
Can you pull up? You have online right there? Or can you grab a budget?
What page?
Oh,
Current fiscal year.
look under P, Public Works. So it's alphabetical, so maybe about 3/4 of the way through the book. And then there's a solid
I
waste.
just want these figures to be out there.
Yeah, there's a solid waste component of it. You're gonna go to page 107, Counselor. And you can see is basically salaries at the top that are either someone at the transfer station scale or seasonally when we operate, or not seasonally, but the hours that we operate the brush dump. And so you can see that the cost of our staff is about $111,000. And the cost of everything from picking it up curbside to then the hauling fees, that's what would, so the collection curbside is middle of the bottom section called collection contract. The line above it, transfer station, is the cost that Waste Management charges us to haul each ton from here to Pennacook. And then the number underneath collection contract where it says Concord Cooperative is the amount that we pay for a tipping fee by the ton where the materials get incinerated. And then we have the recycling component of it, which is the cost to pick it up curbside. And then also right now, the expense of getting rid of recyclables because it's not a break-even scenario. And then a few small items like hazardous waste day and supplies and lights. So all totaled, you have about $2.35 million is the current budget for solid waste.
So that's gonna go up to 26.
Almost 2.7, is that right?
2627. We also, as Wes had said under decision, some changes to the solid waste fee increases. So we may have to raise tipping fees for commercial haulers that bring material into the transfer station. That would not affect any taxpayers who on the curbside pickup because these are dumpsters that are being privately picked up and emptied. And as our costs go up to do all the things that I just mentioned to haul and tip, we would have to pass down those costs to private haulers who in charge would pass it on to their customers just as the cost of doing business. So we might have a little bit of revenue offset in that mix.
Okay, so this 320 is for keeping it the way it is right now.
No, that's under a best case scenario with going to an automated system. And it probably would be a couple $100,000 above that if we were to stay with a manual system. So, ballpark, we might be at a $250,000 increase if we were to automate at the end of this contract. Again, this contract runs through October. And then if we were moving automated, it's probably going to take us, I'm probably jumping ahead on Wes's slides, but it's probably going to take us a year or a little bit longer to have the trucks ordered and have Casella go through and be ready to go. So we would do a little interim contract until we were ready to switch automated. But our fixed price with Casella, the contract runs through the end of October. So we would be building in increases.
So 320 would be the automated system.
May I, Bob, are you done? Scott, didn't you put something out the other day that talked about the manual system? It was
I've
like,
got it in my slides.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come to that
You've got it
shortly.
coming right up here for
I'm
you.
just wondering how much we would add over the,
You'll see it.
Wes,
shortly.
go right ahead. Yeah, we'll
Okay.
see if he gets that. And then
Okay,
we'll
so
circle
the-
back with questions.
So the collection contract curbside expires on the last day of September of this year. So the new contract has to start on the 1st of October, or the extension to get us to whatever we decide to do has to start that date. The incinerator contract ends at the end of this calendar year. And then the transfer station contract ends on May 20th of 2027. Hit the wrong button again. Okay, so this is our system. You have the contractor, which is Casella right now, collects trash curbside. They take it to the transfer station. They drop it off there. They don't pay a fee for it. No sense charging ourselves. Because then Waste Management takes that, hauls it from our transfer station for a fee per ton to the incinerator at Pennacook, where we get charged directly to us for the tipping fee of the tonnage that goes into the incinerator. Two other inputs to that. One is anybody who brings that trash to the transfer station pays a fee, but then the rest of the system goes that way. Guilford Commercial comes to us. That happened beginning January 2020, when everything else went over to Guilford. They pay that same system. They pay a fee to us, then it goes through down to the incinerator. Construction demolition is basically the same, except we don't pick any curbside, and it goes to the Rochester landfill instead of the incinerator. And then the city's recycling system is quite a bit different. It's collected curbside. Right now, Casella takes it to their sorting facility for a set fee for hauling and a set fee for sorting it. And then we get so much based off the sales as a rebate against that set fee. On what is brought to the transfer station, that's free to us. Excuse me, free to the customer. It costs us just over $64 a ton to get it to waste management sorting facility, where that gets disposed of to whoever buys that product. And then the Messer Street bulk cardboard, we pay a rental fee for the compactor, and we pay for hauling. And if whatever we get for the value of the cardboard goes against that fee. Okay, so here's what it looks like right now, based off of some firm numbers that we've gotten and based off of what we anticipate with inflation and fuel costs. Okay, so on the left is the calendar year. On the middle column is the hauling cost. That's what waste management charges to us. They get CPI plus 1%, and then they get fuel adjustments twice per year. The next column is the disposal cost. That's per ton. That's what the incinerator charges us. They have already come to us, said this is our best and final offer to the co-op. And what you see there price-wise is that last offer from them. It goes out for a total of 7 years. There's some lines I didn't put in there, but basically we go up to $85 in 2023 on the first day in January. And then it's $5 every year after that. It goes out for the duration of the contract. So you can see what is happening with our trash per ton costs. Sometime in 2022 to 2023, depending upon, inflation, all that, we're going over $94 a ton, which is what our current charge is for things for trash being brought to the transfer station. Our monthly collection costs, you can see what we're paying right now. That's the October 1st, 2021. Curbside collection for trash, recycling collection, and that's the fee that we pay less the rebate for processing the recycling. And the bid that we did early in 2021, those were the prices, best prices that we got from the contractor. We had two bids. We had automated collection from Casella, and we had automated collection from Waste Management. We went out again in December of 2021 in conjunction with Belmont to see if we could lower the cost. Because of what happened with the economy, what happened with the laser shortage, it went the other way. Costs went up. So we had one bid, that was Casella for automation, and you can see it's $51,083 for trash collection. And $18,756 for recycling.
That's per month, right?
That's per month. You asked us to get a estimate from Casella, the only bidder, in regards to what they thought that manual collection would be. That's that last column. That was about 69,000 for curbside collection and around 26,000 for recycling collection. I want to say that's an estimate. That is not a proposal from them. They stated in that same email that they don't intend to provide manual service after the date of the end of the contract. Now, they will, if they get the contract for automation, they will continue it until such time the equipment arrives and they convert to automated.
So for Councilor Susie, your question on the December 2021 bid, if you take the monthly cost for curbside collection and the recycling collection and multiply those out by 12 months, it's about $800,000 for that component. If you look at the manual estimate, it's about $1.1 million. So there's about a $300,000 difference going from manual from automated to going manual. So it's a significant jump between the two of them. And as I mentioned earlier, it's an increase over what we're currently paying right now, which is about $650,000 for the same thing. So it's $650 today. Lowest bid being automated going to around $800. Highest bid going to manual going to $1.1 million.
Okay, if I can digress just a moment. The email that you sent on Friday, Scott,
Yes.
there are two lines in there, annual MSW collection rate and the annual REC collection rate. REC recycling.
Yeah, and MSW municipal solid waste, so trash.
That's
So
the
again,
one
those
line.
are the numbers that reflect here on this slide right now. And again, it's 800,000 ballpark for the automated, for the two components of curbside, and 1,000,001 for, as it is today, with one driver and one person hanging on the back of the truck.
Okay, but, sorry,
Go right ahead, yeah.
for the automated though, I mean, we also have to include the cost of these containers, which is what?
We do have a one-time cost. We haven't gotten the exact number of bins. We've got a very close number, but not down, but we anticipate it's going to be somewhere between $600,000 and $700,000 as a one-time purchase. And then we would probably do a 10-year bond on that. So we probably would have debt service in the area of, call it $80,000 a year as a rough number right now that would factor into it.
So, okay, so I asked this of Wes earlier before the meeting, actually, but the old containers that everybody bought way back when, what happens with those?
So those are exactly the types of containers that we would be providing, and we would be providing 164 gallon for trash and a 96 for recycling. So they have the maximum capacity for recycling. There'd be, I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but there'd be opportunities for senior citizens to size down and say, I don't need something that big. We actually did a survey about a year ago to try to get a handle on how many of those commercial grade 64 gallon toters that we sold at a reduced price to encourage recycling like 8-9 years ago. I know we put out over 1,000 and I want to say 1,500. I know we bought 1,000 and I think we bought 500 more. We tried to get a sense of how many people had them and we could identify addresses, and only about 100 people responded to the survey, if you will, to say, yes, I've got it. But absolutely somebody can say, and that would be part of our educational outreach. Do you already have one of these? And does it work for you? And do you need a new one? And for someone who says, no, I don't need a new one, it's good. They're sturdy. They hold up to everything. Or if somebody said, I've got one that's a little beat up, I'd like to swap it out for a new one and I'll give you my used one. As that way, I don't have to store an extra bin. We'd be happy to do that swap program too. But if somebody has one and it's a good working condition, they absolutely can continue to use that one.
Okay, also way back when the city gave out those green totes. So we won't be able to use those anymore either. What's the question? What's the idea of what do we do with those?
You can store your basketball and football or whatever else you've gotten them, that a lot of them probably get used for as ancillary uses and stuff.
Christmas stuff is.
There you go. But those don't no longer work with the automated arm that comes around and grabs and picks up. But on the flip side, for somebody having 4 of those out in front of their house when the wind blows like today, and you see the plastic milk jugs and everything else going down the street because there's no lids on them, a 96 gallon recycling toter, which is the size that we would be proposing, or smaller if somebody requests it, is much neater and has a hinge lid on it that keeps everything intact so it's not blowing down the street. And again, if somebody said, I've got these and I want the city to come pick them up and take them away, we'll be happy to do that as well. The little square green ones.
Good for now.
Okay, so Casella's proposal included some exceptions. Their fee increase per year was CPI urban consumer garbage and trash collection. There is one in the CPI index. That's what they want, but if it's less than 5%, they want 5% per year. Fuel charge and diesel prices, the diesel goes above $3.50 a gallon. If there's contamination rate greater than 5%, they're going to work with us to try to reduce it to less, because that way it holds our costs down and their costs down. The whole estimate proposal is based off of 5,400 stops. In that contract, they said if you want more than one recycling cart, you want 2, it's $130 annually for every additional cart. So my anticipation, it's another $130 for every additional cart above the 5,400. $15,000 per month if they have to rent vehicles to meet the 1st of October 2022 start date. But they said they'd work with us to come up with an interim price until such time as the trucks arrived. And then the value of recycling and processing is $148 a ton less the rebate. Okay, cart purchase. Trucks are gonna cost, will be from the time they order it to the time they arrive is someplace between 12 to 15 months. So that means we're already talking next year sometime before we can start the automated collection. If we partner with the recycling partnership for their grant, we can get $15 per recycling cart towards our purchase. The key on that is because we're every other week, they'll only give us that grant if we purchase 96 gallons. They do have an exception though. If we establish a policy for senior citizens or disabled to get something smaller, they do agree with that and will give us the $15 per cart for it.
And that's just a comparison of 96, 64, and 32 in your photo there, just so you can get a sense. And the next slide even compares it to
The typical
30-gallon trash barrel.
Right. So you can see what the size difference is.
These are all on wheels, obviously.
They're on wheels with the handles, with a hinge lid. And right now for a single, our ordinance, we're not proposing to change our ordinance. So whatever a property is allowed for trash right now, they would still be allowed. So if you're a single family residence, right now under the ordinance, you're allowed 2 30-gallon trash barrels. The proposal would be to do the 164-gallon trash container. So actually, you're bumping it up by 4 gallons if you want to look at it that way. So we're not reducing the amount of trash somebody can put out. It's just 64 gallons in one toter as opposed to right now the max of 2 30-gallon containers.
Scott, Mayor, on the totes, we buy them, get them to the houses and all that. Who's responsible for repairing them if the cover gets ripped off or whatever?
If we purchase them, it would be us.
We would keep some spares and we would have them available and swap them out as needed. And as was stated earlier, they do come with chip readers. We aren't planning on using the chip readers. They do have it, and they do have all registered numbers that would come in a database for this, so we would know which ones. Yes, I'm not going to say that a barrel couldn't go missing, but I would think for the most part, they stay put. There is a tracking number on them, and then the intent is that when someone leaves the property, they sell the house, the barrels remain as part of the property because that's what they're registered to, and the city's providing them as part of our contract. So the intention would be those barrels remain behind with the property.
Okay, so curbside container allowance is what we're proposing to change. So a single family with up to 3 units, i.e. a triplex, would be authorized going from per unit 2 30-gallon containers to 164. A business, which is authorized 7, would go to 4, and apartment condo units, which are 3 or over, would go from 7 to 4. On the recycling side, you can see we'd be going from no limit to 1 on the 96-gallon for the businesses, and apartments over 3, it'd be 4.
And people still would have the opportunity to use the transfer station if they needed. The cardboard cage would still remain there for residents, available 24/7. People can bring recyclables to the transfer station, just show proof of Laconia residency, and there's no charge for bringing recyclables to the transfer station. So none of that changes.
Can the homeowner or a apartment owner add to this if they wanted to?
Yeah, I think it was mentioned on an earlier slide. If you want to look on your handout on page 10, it says that if we needed more than 1 recycling cart, it'd be $130 annual charge for each additional cart. That was for recycling. If we needed something more for trash, I'm sure we could work out a number on that. I know some communities that when you're reading their operations of how they do that, if somebody requests that they purchase another cart, is provided to them at their cost. And then right now it's, I read one community that they build it out quarterly on our water bills, and maybe there's something we could look at there to do something where it's registered to a property. They made that someone would sign a request that they wanted it, show a copy of their license to verify it was them who requested it. The community kept it on file, and it just got added as a standalone line on water sewer bill as a way of collecting an extra flat charge without having to chase somebody monthly or every week or that type of stuff. So there's probably little nuances to it that we can work with to try to accommodate as many people as possible.
So the decisions that are going to have to be made fairly quickly, are we going to convert to automated, and then what the container allowance is going to be?
Meaning what size containers are we looking to provide?
Council Littman.
Thank you. I appreciate the presentation. I just want to back up to the beginning point in terms of some of the public testimony we had today. And I know that we provided information on an estimate basis, but is it established as a fact that there would be no bidding on the current configuration, and that we don't know that that would be worth considering for a longer period of time? I think in terms of affecting such a change in the community, I think we need to be more certain about it than we are today. And maybe I'm missing some information. I'll leave it at that.
And we can certainly look to get that a little firmer in writing. So what Council Lippman is referring to that you all saw in an email on Friday is when we said, hey, give us the quote for manual so we can compare manual versus automated. Casella didn't give us a quote. They gave us an estimate of what they thought it would be, but basically said, we are winding down manual collection business as contracts wind down. I'm paraphrasing their words, but that was the gist of it. So I can look to get something, Councilor Lippman, a little bit firmer than saying, yes, this is not a service that we're going to be providing going forward, if that's what you're looking for. And we can certainly share that with the community.
I think that affects the complexion of how people look at it if there's not an option to continue it under any means. Then I guess the other question was, and we don't necessarily have to do it tonight, but I think the concerns raised about how to, and particularly in the urban compact areas, make the 3-foot separations and the like work for folks. And so I think we need to spend a little bit more time on that, not necessarily tonight, but at some point here.
Sure. And I did an informal survey on my manager's listserv across the state. And again, maybe not everybody responded, but I can tell you there's automated systems in Goffstown, Fremont, Nashua.
I have Franklin,
Londonderry.
Rochester, Nashua, Stratham, Manchester is implementing now. This is coming off your email, just Goffstown, Fremont, Londonderry.
Yeah. So, I mean, Franklin right down the road has been doing it for a number of years. Rochester's another mill city. They're working. I've got to assume all these communities have certain challenging streets or layouts as we would. And are there bumps that we would have to go over and have a little learning curve? Absolutely. But I don't think there's anything that's insurmountable. All of these folks that I contacted says an education and outreach and information getting out there repeatedly months ahead of time was a very important component of having this go off successfully. And that's something that we're certainly willing to do. And Stratum, and I think I put it in one of the emails to you, just implemented theirs, and they're dealing with the same regional manager we are, and they at Casella, and they could say enough good things about this person working with their public works director and taking ownership of it and really wanting it to be successful right out of the gate. And they're in Stratum is in year 1 of it right now, and are again a few bumps and bruises and learning curves, but again, very pleased with how the program rolled out.
Just briefly on that, Councilor Lippman, and maybe just important to make part of the record here, and in the email from Casella's market area manager, he writes, and I quote, "As we've discussed on several occasions, the cost to provide manual collection has increased exponentially. Despite the increase in cost, Casella's willingness to provide this type of service is no longer a part of our long-term plan. The challenges we face and the exposure we have with this type of service no longer make it a legitimate and viable option," close quote. So, I mean, I think that sort of lays it out what their business plan is and really forces us to make a decision here. Right? I mean, that seems to lay it out pretty simply to me. And go right ahead, Councilor Lippman.
Sorry, I think
quite all right.
in terms of, thank you for, Mayor, I think that the issue is for those people who have had enough change in their life based on what's happened with the pandemic over the last number of years and what's going on economically. I think to understand that there really is not another option by having a competitive bid. If there's none that come forward, that's a different issue. I think it casts a completely different light on the situation in terms of what we need to do if in fact there is not another option. And based on what Casella's saying, there is not another option with them. Minimally, that's, I think, pretty clear. There's a transition option with Casella. And it may be that based on the bid experience that we've had over the last 2 times we've gone out to bid, that there isn't anybody else left standing wanting to do manual collection.
Well, I think it presents a tremendous challenge, but I think this, like any significant change, this is there's an education component here that is critical to this success. And I also think making as much information that we have available to us, available to the public and transparent is critically important as well. So I thank you for the work. I thank you for the presentation, Wes. Go right ahead. Yes.
Just going along with what you and Henry just stated about Casella and their plans to basically terminate the manual collection at some point. I mean, they're telling us it's going to go away. So what that point is, we don't know. And if we want to continue with the manual collection, we would have to pay a huge premium to do that.
I think they're identifying that it would be a premium, but that they're willing to work with us in a transitional phase. But this is not in their long-range planning. So I do not believe they're going to say, if you're willing to pay the premium, we'll do it for another 3 years for you. I think we're just kicking the can down the road to something that's inevitably coming in,
Well, I think in the alternative too, I'm sorry to interrupt, is this idea that we're going to take this responsibility on ourselves as a city. And we're going to either purchase these trash haulers or lease them, as someone has suggested. We're going to hire, say, two people per truck or 3 people. We're going to have to make sure that we've got enough people. We'd run into the exact same problems that the private market's running into right now. And we see in some areas is hiring people. We're going to have a significant capital cost outlay right up front to get these vehicles. And then we're going to have to pay tipping fees, and we're going to manage it all in-house right now. I mean, I guess that's one option. The other option is to look at automated. I guess the third option is to some sort of hybrid model, or it's not even a hybrid model. It is a hybrid model, similar maybe to what Guilford does, in that you contract with private entities to take your trash away, and that which isn't done, you take to the transfer station, I guess. So, I mean, those are sort of the limited options. I wish we could continue to just go on just like we're going on right now and put it out the end of our street, and a couple guys get off the back of a truck and take care of it for us, and we put the empty barrels back in. But that option really seems to be sunsetting for us. I need to leave to pick up a couple of kids right now, so I'll turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Mark Haynes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Susie? Do you have? Oh, I'm sorry.
Susie over here.
So with
Councilor
that,
Felch, I'm sorry.
with that said, one of the biggest reasons Casella is doing away with this is manual trash removal is the 5th most dangerous job. I'm talking 5th. You're talking up there with logging and some of the real dangerous jobs. So that's one of the reasons. And to take it on as a city, I don't think would be a possibility.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Felch. Councilor Cheney.
Wes, and perhaps Scott, I am somewhat sympathetic to the concerns about if you got 6-unit apartment house, and I've had one, you're going to have 4 cans. I can't speak to his clientele, but my clientele would be having fistfights over who was going to use which barrel. And so can we go back and look at that and see if we can?
That's really up to you from that standpoint, because if we go to every unit's authorized 1, that increases the number of cans, which increases the cost, because they're going to charge us based off of how many stops that they go.
And let me put it a different way for you in numbers. Right now, the maximum that we collect up from anybody, whether it's a business or an apartment condo over 3 units, we pick up 7 30-gallon trash barrels as the limit right now. So that's 210 gallons worth. This proposal is to pick up 4 64-gallon trash containers. So if I do my math quick on the fly, that's 256 gallons. So we're actually increasing with 4 64s. We're giving more capacity than what is allowed under our ordinance right now.
My argument isn't capacity, it's dynamics.
Okay.
If-
And I get there's got to be the spacing. So for yes, for those who have
And-
some
and
challenges,
maybe
we can work with them.
maybe we say if you want more than the 4, you have to, buy the additional ones. But if you have the sort of unit that perhaps garbage is in 2 or 3 different places or whatever, perhaps we ought to at least think about, can we somehow accommodate more than 4 for.
And again, I think that can go to that flat rate fee that can get assigned to someone's bill on a quarterly basis like that. So yes, we'll be happy to work with any property owner to help work out what the ideal logistics are. Were we to go this way? And the other thing, you don't physically have to shovel out and actually see your curb. I mean, you bring your barrels out and they're at the edge of the street. I mean, no one's saying shovel and see your curb, but there just needs to be a little clearance from snowbanks or a mailbox or something so that the arms can come around and pick it up. And in our case, it's trash 1 week, and that's a little easier because there's no recycling container out at the same time. The second week, when you got the recycling container out, now you've got 2. You need to have a little bit of distance on them. That's all.
Counselor Susie, I get the right one now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
His name was Phil.
To follow
No,
on
that's
with-
Felch over there.
To follow on what Councilor Cheney was saying, I can see the fistfights that are gonna happen, okay? But my other question is this, does the 5,400 include the twice a week pickups that we make in the weirs, and how many is that number?
That's, when they put the bid together, that was the total bid package. They know there's 5,400 stops that they usually do in a week. There's additional stops associated with the second pickup in the summertime, but that's rolled into the whole bid price. It's not a separate package, shall we say. So when they say 54, when they say it's based off of 5,400 stops, that's the normal, forget the summer, second pickup.
Does that happen just in the summer, or is that year round?
No, the second pickup starts after bike week, basically, roughly around then, and then ends the Tuesday after Labor Day or the Friday after Labor Day.
Okay, so out of that 5,400, there's a number there.
No, just forget that. That second pickup is not counting that 5,400 at all. That's
So
a
how do we,
normal day
how is that paid for?
that when they rolled up the whole price, they put it in there.
They've rolled everything in because right now they come with a smaller truck and they stop and they empty the trash and recycling containers in the downtown on a smaller truck. That's not the big garbage truck. So they've built the small mom and pop stops and that second delivery in with a normal Monday through Friday, 1 full run.
And then coming back to what Council Cheney was talking about, so if you take and I have a number of different apartment complexes in my ward that have more than 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 apartments, okay? I still would want to see us have, if you have an apartment, you have a bin and a bin, okay? And you work it that way, however that works out, however we calculate again, because I can't expect the apartment owner to turn around and try and manage that himself. That's just crazy.
Well, if you have a 7-unit apartment, then what you're saying is that unit ought to get 7 barrels, and that far exceeds what we've got. If the council decides to go that route, we can go that route. But right now, we generally limit to on a greater than 3. We have a limit on right now that they work with. I'm just
understand,
sharing
but
with you.
That's where I would be going. I'd be asking the council to look at that as part of the whole overall thing. I'm sorry.
That's why they have dumpsters.
That's, I understand. It's in some cases, they might have dumpsters.
And plus with those more containers, you still gotta have them all 3 feet apart. You're gonna be having a football field of containers.
Understood, Tony. We've got a problem. Okay, and it's not gonna be easy to solve.
Wes, if I might, I know it came out in committee and the public should be aware that this was studied by the Public Works Committee before this even came to this body. But I'd like to, just for the public's information, how many people were available to bid on this? And did we send out bids to everyone that was available?
We it went out advertised wise. That was a normal, it's on the website, anybody can search for it. I know for the last, I called Pinard myself to see if they were planning on bidding. They never returned my call, so. Waste Management sent us a nice letter saying, thank you, but we're not interested in bidding at this time. And we got Casella's bid. Those are your three big ones that are in the area.
And we-
Anything else is down in the Massachusetts, just working over in the very southern part of the state.
And we had one smaller kind of startup in the last few years who maybe is kicking the tires a little bit and said they might be interested in looking at doing something on the automated, but the manual provides no interest to them.
So as far as you're concerned, the city did exhaust everyone that could possibly be interested.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
So Mayor Rotem.
Yes, I'm sorry, Councilor Lippman.
I think the issue is whether what we put out to bid was just the automated system alone, or whether we asked for bids on the current system. And that's, I think, what the public needs to understand to get comfortable with, that there is no option here.
Okay, I agree.
We did it for the automated. The last two times we went out prior to this, it was manual. And we received the one bid. So the two other companies that Wes mentioned didn't bid with us multiple times. And I can't speak to the reasons for that, but they did not. It was Best Way that Casella bought, and then Casella's been operating it since then. We have not had competitive bids on this in many years now.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. What is the council's favor?
I thought we were gonna,
I'm asking, would you like to table this?
yes, I would like to table this.
I need a motion then.
Motion to table, please.
Yes, I need a second.
Second.
Madam Clerk, do you get that, Susie and Councilor Cheney? Would you take the roll, please?
No, there's not on. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not debatable.
Non-debatable.
Still need a
Okay.
roll call vote.
Yeah, please, madam.
Councilor Cheney,
Yes.
Yes,
Councilor Lippman,
Yes,
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
thank you, councilors. Councilors, is there anything else to come before us tonight? Seeing none, I would, the council meeting is adjourned. It's